Just recently, I bought this Boss Katana Mark II, the 50-watt version, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed with how it sounds. I've managed to get it to sound pretty darn close to that Fender Deluxe reverb. If you check out my previous video, it'll show you a link where you can download those patches. But you know, this amp is super lightweight. It sounds great, the tones in it, the spring reverb is fantastic. But there's one thing that I'm just not really loving about it. And that is, I've never been a fan of this kind of all black look to an amp. I'm kind of particular for the vintage style amps, you know, these Fenders and these Voxes. Maybe it's my age, I don't know, but I'm kind of stuck in that. So I've been thinking, if I just change this black grill cloth to something really vintage, well, maybe that would do it. And I'm also thinking that if I try this at gigs, whenever, you know, the world opens up for gigs again, if this has a vintage grill cloth on it and no logo, my dream is that I play this at a gig and some, you know, guitar tone snob nerds come up afterwards and say, wow man, nice guitar tone. What kind of boutique amp is that? And I'll get to say, yeah, that's an inexpensive $300 Boss Katana with some vintage grill cloth. Here are the tools I think you're going to need. You're going to need a screwdriver. You're going to need a socket wrench. This is a 7mm. I don't know what that is in your country, but it's a 7mm here. You're going to need a pair of scissors to cut the new grill cloth. We're going to need some devices to pull off the old grill cloth, which I'm assuming is stapled on. So we got some pliers and we got some things to pull those out. And you're going to need a staple gun. Thanks to my neighbor for loaning me this staple gun. I didn't want to buy one just to fire 8 staples into this thing. You need some real grill cloth. You can also just use any kind of fabric, honestly. But, I mean, you want something that's pretty sturdy. And so I bought this stuff. It's obviously way more than I need, but that's okay. There'll be extra. Especially in case I mess it up the first time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the amp head, which is pretty easy. We just need to remove 6 screws in total. There's one here, on the opposite side there, and then there's 2 silver ones at the top there. Now when you pull the amp head out, just make sure you be careful of these the wires here. They are connected to the speaker, and so you don't want to pull those off because then you'll have to solder them back on. Now you can see how once you've undone those 6 screws, this guy can just slide out, right? But again, just be careful of those wires. So you might want to put it upside down. Pull it out like that. It comes out pretty easily. And maybe set it aside somehow so that those wires don't get pulled out. Yeah. The next step is we're going to remove the speaker, and there are 4 screws. Looks like there's 4 screws that are around the edges here. So that's all the screws for the speaker. Now I'm going to pull both the speaker and the amp head out together. Now in order to get the front grill cloth off, there's a couple of bolts we need to use the socket wrench for. I think there's just 2 here and here. Oh, and maybe these screws here, which are holding on the Boss logo and the Katana logo. The logos come off, we can see, with those screws. But now I still have to take off these 4 silver screws in the front. Now, if I did get this right, yep, I did. This thing just comes right out. This is the piece that has the grill cloth stapled to it. Holy moly, look at all the staples they've got on that thing. Oh boy, that is going to take us quite some time to get those staples out. I gotta say, it's very hard getting these staples out. This is the one part where, well, I'm really breaking a sweat. And actually, from trying to get them out, I started getting bloody knuckles from hitting my hand against here. So I'll put a glove on, and I've got 1 out of 4 sides done. Oh, shoot. No, almost done. Anyway, still working on it here. Finally got all the staples off. But you know what? This cloth still doesn't just come off. And it's got to do with these silvery metal pieces on the ends here. I think they're glued on, so I think they're just going to have to be torn off. And you can see I've actually done a fair bit of damage to the wood and just trying to get those staples off, but I don't know. It probably doesn't matter. There's just going to be some more cloth and more staples going in there anyway. Okay, we figured out what was holding these pieces on. It's actually plastic. Now you can see I've destroyed mine, so it's not going back on. It was more staples. I can confirm this thing is well built. And finally, the old grill cloth has successfully been removed. I will admit there was some damage done. Oh well. Also some damage to my hands, if you can see my bloody knuckles there. But I did get it off. So, next step is recreating this thing with the cool new vintage wheat grill cloth. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just laying that piece of wood down on my new grill cloth, and I'm going to measure out about 1 inch or 1.25 inches wider than the actual piece of wood, because it's got to wrap around, right? And I'm going to mark it with this marker, and I'm going to cut it. Well, I've measured it about 20 times because I was so nervous about cutting it wrong, which was silly because I have lots of extra fabric. But anyway, there we go, it's cut. Now I have to figure out how to use a staple gun. Not quite sure how to do the corners, and I couldn't figure out what they did in the old one, so I'm just kind of folding it like that, putting a staple right there, and I'm going to cut the excess off and hope for the best. One thing we could do, if we wanted to, is we could put these guys back on there. Now, I think I'm going to avoid it for now because I want this to be like my stealth boutique amp, you know? Nobody's going to know that I'm playing a $300 amp, although I really like the idea of this thing alone being there. That's pretty cool. But I think I'm just going to leave it like that. So nobody's going to know what this amp is. Here we go. She is done. Looking good. I'm pretty pleased with it. I mean, it's not a professional job. Well, I'm not a professional. You can see kind of in the corners here where, you know, you can see how it kind of goes up a bit there. And the other thing I'm a little disappointed in myself with is that it's pretty, you know, like it pushes in quite easily. Whereas if you compare it to a professionally made amp, that is tight, you know. This is not so tight, but that's okay. I think it looks great. I mean, heck, it's a $300 amp, and now it looks mysteriously like an expensive boutique amp. But no, it's a good old Boss Katana 50 Mark II. And just a reminder that you can download my Katana Mark II patches that are very fair reproductions of this Fender Deluxe reverb here. You can download that from my website at bluemorris.com, but the complete link is in the description. Should I make sure it still turns on? Yeah, that's probably wise, hey? Yep, let's see here. Yep. She still works.